And sell it. I don't even know who mentioned it. I appreciate it.
Laundry. You're the only one ready for class. You see me awake. All right. Good to see you all again. On this chilly day. Continuing our discussion and our honoring of Black History Month. I'm going to talk about this man, beautiful black man, who is on his way, I'm hoping, to sainthood. Maybe you can tell from his outfit, he is a Catholic priest. The Catholic priest, John Augustus Tolton. John Augustus Tolton. Augustus Tolton. And then he lived 1854 until 1897. Oh. And yes, that's clearly not an actual picture of him, okay? He was born in Missouri, 1854. And as I'm sure you can tell, Ms. Winko, he was born into slavery, given his date. His parents were slaves. I guess his grandparents were slaves. Missouri was a slave state at the time. I guess he didn't have to be a slave, but just the way it was at that time. And his slave master was Catholic, so they were all baptized. His parents were Catholic, so he was baptized as a baby. He was baptized with the Christian name Augustine, actually, but he's known as Augustus, so that's what I'll go with. But his baptismal name was Augustine. And he is important to us because he is the first black man to be ordained a Catholic priest for the United States. Okay? First clearly black man. Obviously, you can see he's black, right? But there were at least two people that I know of who were of mixed race before him, who were Americans, one of them I think actually was a bishop up in Maine. They were brothers, the two guys were brothers. They were mixed race, white and black, but they never acknowledged their blackness. They always passed as white. They were both very light skinned. You would never tell if you saw a picture. You wouldn't tell immediately that they were of African descent as well. And they denied it anyways. They always represented themselves as white. They said had nothing to do with their African ancestry, but he did not. Okay? He was fully, obviously, African, not of mixed race at all. And he was fully happy being a black man, So he's considered the first truly black Catholic priest for the United States. For the United States, I mean, we've had black people all throughout the history of Africans, all throughout the history of Christianity. But for the United States, this was a novelty. First one. Okay, so he was born in Missouri to Catholic parents. He was baptized. Then the Civil War happened, so slaves are freed, so he's free. His family is free, but they got out of Missouri anyways. Somewhere along the line, his family moved up to Illinois, which I think was a free state. But anyways, they moved up to Illinois, and that's where he was living. And he was a young Catholic boy. He was interested in his faith, and he attempted to attend Catholic school, which he did for a month. Lasted for a month. And then the white parents made their feelings known to the administration, and he was asked to leave. Little Augustus was asked to leave. However, there was a local Irish priest, Father Peter McGurr, an Irish priest who took a liking to Augustus. And, Augustus was a baptized Catholic. Every Catholic has a right to study and to learn his or her Catholic faith. That's why you have Catholic schools, because Catholics have a right to learn their faith according to church law, okay? And also as a natural right. So they should, what they were doing was wrong, even by church doctrine, by keeping him out. And Father McGurr recognized this, and he had brought him into his school, which was eventually named St. Peter's, and that's where Augustus went to school and eventually graduated. The decision, even there, was controversial. Remember, this is Illinois. You don't usually associate Illinois with like racism like Mississippi or Georgia, like you do historically in the deep South. But from what I understand, I'm not a black person. I don't have African ancestry. Well, I do. We all do. But you know what I mean. I don't have black African ancestry. But you weren't safe up in the North either. If people didn't want to serve you at their store or their restaurant, they didn't serve you if you were black, or didn't want you at their hotel. It didn't matter that you couldn't enslave people. They didn't have to let you in. So people weren't necessarily happy that Augustus, the whites were not happy that he was at St. Peter's, but the Irish Catholic priest said, no, he's a Catholic, he deserves an education, so he studied there. He also developed an interest in becoming a priest. Just kind of like, as I said before, out of the frying pan into the fire, because where was he going to go? This is America, in like the 1880s, this is right after the Civil War. And he's a black man who wants to be a Catholic priest. Well, there were seminaries in the United States, and he applied to them all. Not one of them would take him because he was black. But apparently he didn't become discouraged. Father McGurr encouraged him, said, well, you're smart enough. Go to Rome. Go to the center of the church, the capital, if you will. Go to Rome. Go study in Rome. Rome has seminaries and universities. You're capable. And he's like, okay. So I guess he applied, and I'm assuming he made an application all the way to Rome, and he was accepted, and he went to study at the Urbanian University in Rome. The Urbanian, or the Urbanianum, it's called in Latin, Urbanian. I guess it was founded by one of the popes named Urban. There are several. I don't remember which pope, but there are different universities in Rome. There's the Gregorian University, the Lateran, the Urbanian, and they each have kind of different specialties in theology. The specialty for the Urbanian was missiology, mission studies. Okay, so other religions, the church's relationship with spreading the faith in other religions. And Augustus thought that's what he was going to do. He thought he was going to probably just be a missionary priest in Africa, he thought, because, of course, he's black. Where was he going to serve in the United States? No one wanted him there, as a black. What were they going to do with a black priest? So he thought he was going to be a missionary in Africa. Anyways, he graduated from the Urbanian. He learned Latin and Greek and all that good stuff. And so he probably became one of them when he came back here. He's probably one of the most educated priests, not just in Illinois, but throughout most of the country. They use Latin and Greek and stuff. Anyways, so he did come back. He thought he was going to be a missionary to Africa. He was ordained a priest in Rome and celebrated his first mass in Rome. And he was thinking he was going to go to Africa, but a cardinal is just kind of an honorific title, because you have to remember, I think I mentioned this before when we talked about Vatican I. Vatican City is its own country, and the Pope is the monarch of that country. So he has princes, I guess you could say. Cardinals are kind of defined as princes. They're kind of like papal royalty, you might say. And so he appoints men to be these princes, cardinals. They really are not part of the absolute structure of Christianity or the Catholic Church. They're just an historical thing that developed. They do have some power because they elect the next pope and stuff like that. But anyways, so a cardinal, Giovanni Simeoni, said to Augustus, he said, no, we're going to send you back to America. He said, quote, America has been called the most enlightened nation. We'll see if it deserves that honor. If America has never seen a black priest, it has to see one now. But basically, it's like, you're the Willie Mays, baby. It's now or never. If it's not you, who's it going to be? So no, you're going to go back to America where you can minister. And I like this little detail that I dug out. His first mass celebrated in the New World was in Hoboken, New Jersey, from my state. States. So I appreciate that. Anyway, so he goes back to Illinois, and as you might have expected, they didn't know what to do with him. Where can we put him? Because, all the parishes are basically white people. I mean, there were black Catholics, believe it or not, in America at the time. A few, not many. After slavery and the Emancipation Proclamation, the Catholic bishops kind of just like cut the slaves loose. They didn't really have do any mission activity amongst them, very little. Again, there was racism going on there. So they lost. So, most blacks became Protestants. But you do have several million black Catholics in the country. And there were Catholics at the time, but most people were white, and they didn't want a black priest. So they didn't know what to do with him. The whites didn't want him, the white Catholics, but also he was opposed by black Protestants, but for a different reason. The white Catholics were racists, I would imagine. Because of his race, they didn't want him. The black Protestants, though, were bigots because they didn't like the fact that he was a black man who was Catholic. They didn't like his religion. And they were worried that this black Catholic priest would attract other black Protestants to join the Catholic Church. So they were worried about that. So he was getting it from both sides. Whites didn't like him for his skin color, and people in the black community of Chicago, where he ended up, apparently didn't like him because of his religion. Nevertheless, they finally found a place for him. They decided to establish a national parish for black Catholics, which they called St. Monica's, which was appropriate because St. Monica was an African saint. She was from North Africa. So there's that connection. And they did that a lot 100 years ago, into the 1800s, throughout the early 1900s, because, the church never really knew what to make of America. We didn't have immigrant nations anymore. Hello, miss. There was no such thing as an immigrant nation. The nation is where you were from. Ireland, you expected the people there to be Irish, right? France for the French, Italy for the Italians. America and the New World generally, but especially I would say America was something that was quite new, that you had a mixing of all these people that, all the thing that united them was their citizenship, but there were all different ethnicities and colors and religions and everything. I mean, if you went to Ireland, you'd have Irish culture. The religion would pretty much be the same. Most would be Catholic, some Protestants. Language and stuff like that, it'd be pretty monochrome, but not in America. So the U.S. church didn't know exactly how to deal with that. So they created national parishes for each group. So you had the Irish parish, you have St. Patrick's on the corner, the Irish parish, and St. Stanislaus on the other corner for the Poles, the Polish. You'd have St. Joan of Arc for the French. And here's St. Monica's for all those blacks we don't know what to do with. Anyways, so that's how they handled it, because people kind of wanted to stay with their own group back then and worship with their own group in their own languages and in their own culture. So they established a black national parish. He was known as Good Father Gus. People, as you can imagine, in the city of Chicago, when you're like the only black Catholic priest, you're going to be popular, right? People are going to know who you are. He couldn't hide himself, He was an anomaly, So people knew about him, but they knew that he was a good and holy man, and people respected him. He was known as a good preacher. But he died quite young. He died at the age of 43. There was a major heat wave in Chicago, and apparently he collapsed on the streets of Chicago from, I'm assuming, heat exhaustion. I read a newspaper article about it, but they couldn't save him, unfortunately. So whatever killed him, I'm assuming it was the heat wave that did him in, but nevertheless, he died, a young man, unfortunately. But he was a good and holy man, and his death was even reported in the local Chicago newspapers. That's how well known he was, and well liked. And in 2019, His Holiness Pope Francis finally moved him from servant of God up to venerable. So he's now Venerable Augustus Tolton. And I ask you, Venerable Augustus, beautiful black priest, please pray for us. Amen. Let's see, Miss Hedgepath. Okay. All right, back to Hinduism. Kind of deciding in my own head today if I should get Indian food today. I'm not sure. Like on the way back home, there's an Indian restaurant I could stop by. I haven't made a decision yet. Order some food. I haven't had it in a while. I'm craving. Miss Carney. I'm jonesing. Miss Callahan. Yes. Yes. Father Gus. You and me, Father Gus. No one else. No one else is listening. Well, Miss Francis is listening. I know that. I think Miss Fofana got her. Right, Miss Fofana? Everybody else, who knows? I hope so. We have a quiz on Friday, remember. Oh, wait, who's that in the back? That's Ms. Lane? Oh, yes, I saw you, Ms. Lane. I forgot you came in. Quiz on Friday, Ms. Lane. Oh, Ms. Lane. Let me get you before I forget. All right. So now we're going to talk. We talked about the scriptures, the sacred writings of Hinduism, of which there are many, as you might know by now. But I'm going to talk more, focus on the belief system, some of the main beliefs. Now, because there's so many beliefs of every religion, but some of the main beliefs that define the Hindu religion, so you can get some sense of understanding how they believe and how Hindus believe. First thing we want to talk about is this idea of Brahman, and I've already mentioned it. But here's a definition of it. Brahman is the name for the ultimate underlying source of reality and existence. It is the source of existence. And you can see there that it comes from, that's my abbreviation for Sanskrit. I apologize. I should have written it out on the PowerPoint. But anyways, in Sanskrit, it comes from the word brih, or brink, which means to grow, expand, or increase. And it's kind of how in Hinduism they conceptualize the creation of reality, that at some point Brahman kind of expands out into physical reality and becomes organized. So it's an expansion, a growing, okay, a brief, hence Brahman. You know, how would you translate Brahman then? If I had to, in a pinch, I mean, the thing that grows, the thing that increases. But anyways, but it's the ultimate godlike source of existence. So, early on in early Hinduism, and we see this, for example, Ms. Uttenreither and the Atharva Veda, which I know is a late addition to the Vedas, but it's still early. In the Atharva Veda, Brahman is described as the source of power in the magical formula. It's the power behind the words or the phrases that you use in the ritual. The power in the ritual which you're actuating is Brahman. So that's what, that's where the early conception or view of Brahman is amongst Hindus. So very practical kind of understanding, the power of the ritual. Later on in Hinduism, for example, in the Brahmanas that are attached to each Veda, and also later in the Upanishads, which, remember, the Upanishads are kind of a more reflective, philosophical type of literature, Brahman is reconceptualized as the ultimate and supreme source of power in the universe. It is the absolute source of all power in the world. And Brahman becomes the origin, the cause, the basis of all existence, of all knowledge, of all experience. Now, one knowledge is interesting, because remember, that's where the Vedas come from. Remember Veda, Ms. Callahan? Veda in Sanskrit? What does Veda mean? You don't know? Oh, you have no idea? Yeah, I'm sure you have an idea somewhere in your head. or in your notes. Oh, wait a second. Miss Frances with DePrinzio, are you like looking at your notes? Zola, like, have they learned nothing? It's like the middle of February. They haven't figured it out? You're taking notes? Well, what do you know, Mr. Bell? At 2. Mr. Bellevue, at 2. At 2. And that's good. Oh, at 2. Isaac, right? Isaac? Isaiah. Isaiah, sorry. At 2. Uzziah. At 2.
I don't remember him too. I know the Venus.
You didn't read Julius Caesar in high school? Shakespeare. Anyone read Julius Caesar in Shakespeare in high school? That you did? Et tu, Brute? Et tu?
Isn't it you? And you?
Stop knowing things. All right, Mr. Belfield, go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Belfield.
He's knowledge.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be educated. Oh, sorry, I missed that. Knowledge, yes, Veda, Miss Callahan. Related to the word wisdom, okay? Knowledge, wisdom. Remember, the Vedas are wisdom. They're the sound of the universe, of ultimate reality. That's why they're Shruti, because they come from Brahman directly, which is knowledge. So the Vedas are unchangeable and unchanging, like the source of existence. Okay, so that's why the Vedas are important. Brahman pervades everything. You know, I'm using the word existence, which you could also use philosophically for the Jewish God and the Christian God and the Islamic God, that he's the source of existence. But in Hinduism, they like to talk more about pervasion. The God, Brahman pervades rather than exists. Kind of like is present in everything. And everything is present in Brahman. Brahman does not create. It's not a creator God. There is a creator God related to Brahman, which we'll get to. But Brahman really produces. Things emerge from Brahman. It's not more a creation like in the Christian or Jewish story where God says, you know, let there be light. I will that light exist. That's creation. There's no light and then God wills it to be in existence and it exists. No, things emerge already from Brahman. You're already there in Brahman. And now you're here, Ms. Rain. Not necessarily happy, but you're here, Ms. Rain. That's right. Yes. Brahman is indescribable. Ultimately, Brahman defines all definition. All definition. It's impossible to really define it. Although in Hinduism, you know, it can kind of go either way. There's Brahman without... Excuse me, let me... I hate that when that happens. I think my button came unbuttoned. My button come unbuttoned? Or is that just the extra button? Okay, that's the extra button. Sorry. You know, there are those, you know, normally or typically, I think in Hinduism, you have Brahman without attributes. So you can say Brahman is not this, Brahman is not that, okay? Because it's indefinable, really. You can't fully grasp it at all. But then there are those Hindu theologians that talk about Brahman with attributes. There's some things that you can say about Brahman positively. But Hinduism tends on the side of negation, that what we cannot know about Brahman. Which is weird because the whole point of liberation is one of the points of the paths to liberation is true knowledge. But if you can't really ever at all understand or know Brahman, and liberation is, like I told you with the Vedanta and Advaita Hinduism, realizing that there is no separation between you and Brahman. You are Brahman and Brahman is you. So you can't understand yourself? How does that work? You know? It's I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, but then I'm not a Hindu theologian. If I asked the guru might have a good answer, but I can't come up with anything because it's, you know, so Brahman is ultimately unknowable. And ultimately, Brahman has no qualities or attributes, even though sometimes, as I said in Hinduism, they do try to describe Brahman positively, say what it is, but most often than not, it's so unknowable that you can't even describe it. Nevertheless, Brahman is commonly described, just go with it, by the phrase Saksidananda, which is a combination of three Sanskrit words, Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Sat means being or existence. Chit means knowledge. Yeah, knowledge, right? No. Yeah, knowledge. Or as it's translated here, consciousness. Ananda means happiness, joy, or bliss. So the basic, I guess, if you want to say there are characteristics of Brahman, the basic characteristics of Brahman are its existence as existence itself, being, consciousness, which we could also say knowledge, I guess, and happiness or bliss, peaceful happiness, you might say. Another way to translate bliss. Okay, so Saksidananda is the basic term for the essence, if you will, or the nature of Brahman. So all existence comes from Brahman, all consciousness or knowing comes from Brahman, and bliss indicates that it is the highest goal or highest value of all experience. It's the fulfillment of all our experiences. Nevertheless, any qualities are really just being superimposed by human experience on Brahman. We're always kind of imposing our own experiences on Brahman. Brahman is not a personal God. Brahman is neutral. It is impersonal. It's not a person. It's just it's a thing that exists. Well, I shouldn't say that exists. It is existence. It's simply existence. So there's no real relationship with Brahman. How do you relate with Brahman? Well, through the gods and the goddesses. And to some extent, the demons. Because Brahman gets manifested, it emerges, its godlike quality, I guess you could say, emerges out of it in the form of gods, into the world of appearance, of Maya, the illusory world of appearance. It appears in the form of gods and goddesses. Notice the plural. It's not one god, but it's a multiplicity, diversity of gods and goddesses. Hence, many gods in Hinduism. And through these many gods and goddesses, and even the demons, the bad gods, you can see a spectrum of, or you can see a manifestation of Brahman's attributes, different aspects of Brahman. So there's one Brahman, there's one existence, but many gods. And typically in religious studies, you could define Hinduism as polytheistic. I don't think I gave you a definition for that, but I'll give it to you. Polus in Latin, Polus in Greek means many. And the word theos means God. We know this. Talked about theos, divine. We talked about what constitutes religion. So belief in many gods. And so on the surface, Hinduism seems to be polytheistic with a belief in many gods, a multiplicity of the divine, one might say. But not always. I mean, I guess a lot of Hindus would view it that way. They would just accept the fact that there are many gods and goddesses. But more, I guess, thoughtful Hindus or philosophically minded Hindus recognize that even behind the gods and goddesses, there is always the one reality, the one existence. So it's not really polytheism in that sense, that you do believe in one divine source in Brahman. Strictly speaking, it might not be polytheism. But the gods are a way of approaching the ultimate. You approach the ultimate through the gods. Okay, I'll get to that in a second. And in Hinduism, they've even developed a supreme god that symbolizes Brahman, who is not Brahman, called Ishvar or Ishvara. So Brahman is typical because people still want gods for some reason. I don't know why Brahman's not enough for them. Maybe because they want that personal touch. But anyways, so in Hinduism, even Hinduism has like a supreme god that's ultimately connected with even Brahman. So you can relate to Brahman, Ishvar or Ishvara. But as we'll learn in a few moments, there's some Hindus that also believe in other supreme gods. There's more than one supreme god. How does that work? Doesn't matter. It doesn't, yeah. You don't, Hinduism isn't a questioning religion in that way. You just accept it. Okay, yeah. And here we get to the Trimurti, which is a divine triad of the gods Brahma, notice the spelling, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, who manifest Brahman. Are there more gods than these three? Yes, there are many, many gods and goddesses in Hinduism. These are the three main ones that represent Brahman. The three forms, tree, notice the relationship. Murti means a form. I guess you could also say image, but form. So the three forms, the three images of Brahman, that way that Brahman is represented to us. The Trimurti. And each one represents aspects of the ultimate. Brahman represents the creative aspect, Vishnu represents the preservative aspect, and Shiva represents the destructive aspect in Brahman. Okay? And each member of the Trimurti, these are all male gods, they're men, but they do have wives. You always have to have a woman on your arm if you're a god. You know what I'm saying? If you're a real god. Well, the Jewish god doesn't, or the Islamic god doesn't, and the Christian god doesn't, but he does have a son somehow. So explain how that happens, Mr. Belfield. Anyways, it's a woman somewhere in the mix. Even if it's a little Jewish peasant girl. But yeah, in ancient pagan religions, yeah, it made sense that, again, that duality, the male and female. So, if you have a god, then he has to have a goddess. He has to have a wife, you have to have and then they have children, they have a family just like human beings do, So every member of the Trimurti has what's called a consort, basically a wife, a female partner of the male god. So here's my own rendition of the Trimurti picture I made many years ago. Tried to update since. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Okay, three main gods of the Trimurti. Then their consorts. For Brahma, he's associated with Saraswati. Vishnu is associated with Lakshmi. Shiva is associated with Durga, also called Parvati, also called Kali. And then Vishnu, what is this down here? This is the appearances of Vishnu in the world of appearance, which I'll talk about later when I get to Vishnu. I'll come back to this picture. Yes, Mr. Belfield.
Big man lion.
Oh, yeah, the man lion.
Yes. Is it like where it's like the body? Like, what are they called? Not centaur. Like that.
A centaur, the Minotaur? Thinking of a Minotaur who is half like bull and half.
One more is a dude. Oh, that's a horse. What's a man?
Oh, the horses. Yeah, like from Harry Potter. They're centaurs, right? Centaurs are half man, half horse.
Yeah. What's a man lion?
I don't know from Greek and Roman mythology. From Hindu mythology, it's Vishnu. He appears as half man and half lion. A lion head, lion arms, the rest of him is human. Looking. Is that okay? The man lion. I'll come back to this picture. It's just to whet your appetite. Oh, and there's a purpose in the sides of these circles, because Brahma is the less worshipped of the two. Vishnu and Shiva are the most worshipped, most honored amongst Hindus. They're the two main gods, even supreme gods for a lot of Hindus. And Brahma is not. Brahma is less worshipped. Vishnu is, Brahma and Saraswati are about equal in honor. Lakshmi is not equal with Vishnu. However, Durga is very powerful. That's why she's the same size, almost the same size as Shiva. She's almost as powerful as the male gods. That's why I have her big. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Brahma the creator. Brahma the creator. Okay, there's a rendition of him with his 4 faces pointing in different directions, maybe for the signs of the compass, that he can see everything, see all sides. He's on his, it's not just nice to have a woman on your arm if you're a male god. You also need the proper vehicle, you're right? Men need sports cars to impress the ladies, right? So every god, even the goddesses, have a vehicle. Barbie needs her car, right? She's got her car. So they have a vehicle, which is an animal that they ride on. And I think this is a peacock. No, I want to say a peacock, but that doesn't look like a peacock. I want to say a swan. Maybe it's a swan. Okay, but anyways, I forget which animal this is meant to. I think it's a swan. I thought it was a peacock. But if someone wants an extra credit point, look up what's Brahma's vehicle. Is it a swan, a peacock, and let me know. And then he has many arms. These can symbolize the power of the god, that he has 4 arms, not just 2, so he's powerful. But also it's useful for placing different symbols of the god in each hand. So, if there are 4 symbols of the god, then you need to represent 4 arms. He needs to hold each one of them, so he needs 4 arms. I think this is a copy of the Vedas scripture, and this is like a bowl of something. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the other things are. I'd have to look them up. Each god has different symbols that he holds or she holds. So Brahma is the god of creation, but don't be fooled by that word. A swan, goose, or a crane? Yeah, this doesn't look like a crane to me. Maybe a goose. It looks more, well, maybe a swan or a goose. A goose? What do you think? You don't know? So this could be a swan or a goose or a crane. Rainer? This way. Okay. Brahma is more of an orderer than a creator. Brahman emerges into the world, but Brahma is the god who brings order and organizes the primordial matter. So that's what he's more as. He's an organizer. When they say he's a creator, it's more of an organizer. And Brahma is the one who brings multiplicity into being from the primordial unity. Brahman is one, it's one thing. But as it emerges, Brahma makes it into other things, which is not really a good thing from the perspective of Hinduism. Remember, that's where illusion, the illusion that there is multiplicity in the world is not a good thing when there's really only unity. So it kind of shows you the negative view already that in ancient Hinduism, or somewhere along the way in Hinduism, that was attached to Brahma. That he's the bringer of this illusion of difference in Brahman. So Brahman is pretty much a little worshipped god. He's not worshipped or very popular by Hindus. He only has 2 or 3 major temples in Hinduism. Or Okay, I'll pass over that. That's not one. And I've asked people why. I've contacted, sent emails to like people who are scholars in Hinduism, trying to figure out, and people who are Hindu, trying to figure out what happened to Brahma. Why isn't he as popular as Shiva or Vishnu or whatever? And no one seems to know. There are different stories in the mythologies and the Puranas about why Brahma, trying to explain why Brahma is not as good a god as Vishnu and Shiva. One story has him having a debate with Vishnu and Shiva, and I think it's Shiva. I want to get the god right, but says, he makes a bet with Brahma and Vishnu. He says, I don't know. I don't know what he promises to give them, but he says, tell me if you can find my beginning and my end. Go search for it. Search the universe for my beginning or my end. And so both Brahma and Vishnu go off into the universe searching for the beginning and end of Shiva. And they can't find it. At least Vishnu can't find it. And he's honest about it. He comes back and worships, bows down to Shiva, saying, no, you are without beginning or end. So basically acknowledging the superior godhood of Shiva. Okay, it kind of tells you which group of Hindus wrote this story, this myth. But Brahma comes back and he lies. He couldn't find the beginning and end of Shiva either, but he kind of obfuscates and says, well, not sure, But I think a little flower from the ground cries up and says, or something like that. And so Brahma is unmasked as being untruthful. So that's kind of a stain on Brahma. The other story is that there was a rishi who wanted to have a big sacrifice for the gods and was going around inviting gods to attend. And the rishi went to Brahma and was begging him, come to my big sacrifice, come to my party. But Brahma was so enthralled with himself and his own meditations and his own beauty as Brahma that he couldn't hear the entreaties of the rishi. And so he ignored him. And so the rishi got angry and basically cursed Brahma. No one will worship you. Okay. That's another story. Don't know. He's just not very much worshipped. Vishnu is, however, Vishnu the preserver. Preserver. Oh, I should say something about Saraswati. Huh? You really want that man lion, don't you? Are you a Thundercats fan? Thundercats, Thundercats, Thundercats! See, kids these days don't watch enough cartoons. What do you do when you're waiting for the school bus to come get you? Watch cartoons. Thundercats. Yeah. I should mention something about Saraswati. She's the goddess. She's usually connected with knowledge and the arts. So she's big amongst university students. If you're going to university, that you might have a special devotion to Saraswati and pray to her. So that's basically all I'm going to say about that. There's not much more really to say about her, other than her connection to Brahman. And now we have Vishnu, the preserver. Vishnu is only a minor god in the Vedic literature, so he's not a very popular god wasn't a popular god amongst the Aryans. So he's not mentioned very much in the Vedas, but now he's very popular. And the followers of Vishnu think that he is the supreme god, even Brahman itself. And the majority of Hindus follow Vishnu and worship Vishnu. So according to the statistics, going back to our book that I used at the beginning of Hinduism, Todd Johnson and Brian Grimm, The World's Religions and Figures, Introduction to International Religious Demography. According to that book, as of 2013, about 67.6% of Hindus identified Vishnu as the main supreme god. Excuse me. Did I say 67.6? So, 68%, we rounded up, of those who claim to be Hindu worship Vishnu, think he is the supreme god. And why not? He appeared as a man lion, right, Miss Hui? Those who follow Vishnu are called Vaishnavites, devotees of Vishnu, Vaishnavites, and they oftentimes will identify themselves by this powder, this paste that they will apply to their foreheads, and kind of looks like a V. That's how I remember it for Vishnu. Okay, but it's not. I mean, I think it's Vishnu as a trident, or is that a sheep? Well, anyways, I think this red is meant to be called the footprint of Vishnu. But anyways, this identifies usually someone as a Vaishnavite, someone who is a devotee of Vishnu. It's interesting. Oh, that's right. You'll like the. Hold on, Mr. Belfield. You'll really appreciate what's coming up. And now I got to go back to my picture because Vishnu has a lot of avatars. Vishnu, as I told you before, when Dharma is threatened, I mentioned it before, when Dharma is threatened, Vishnu will enter into the world of illusion. He will appear amongst humans in order to restore order, to restore Dharma. Okay? And there are several times that has happened in the history of the universe. Okay, these are called avatars, appearances. An appearance of the divine in human form. Okay? And before I go back to my picture, I will mention this. This is his vehicle, a snake. One of his vehicles, Shesha the snake. Okay, so he's sleeping here on Shesha. But yeah, so he has a snake. He might ride other stuff. I forget what else, but it's one of his vehicles. Okay, so Vishnu has what are called the Dashavataras. 10, Dash, 10, yes? In Spanish, 10? Or what is it, 10? French? We take French in high school. And we take Latin, decem, or deca in Greek. Dash, Sanskrit, 10. The 10 avatars. There are 10 standard. Now, there are stories of other appearances, but these are the 10 appearances of Vishnu. First, he came as a fish man. Then he came as a tortoise, or a turtle. Then he came as a boar, like, a pig with tusks. Then he came as a man lion. Then he came as a dwarf, well, when I was growing up, I got to tell you, I mean, no offense, but I never used the M word or the D word in any negative way, And then somewhere along the line, it became victimized. So you can't use it anymore. So it was perfectly, I never yelled, never saw like a little person and said, "Oh, you're an M, you're not a person." Anyways, I don't know where this came up with. But anyway, so it's a dwarf. That's just what they call him. He's the dwarf priest. He's a very short he's a little person who's also a Brahmin priest. So I'm not trying to be bigoted here or whatever. That's just what he's called. Parashurama, Rama with an axe. Not Rama the king, I don't think. It's another Rama, but he has an axe. Right? Parashu, so he's got an axe. Then Rama, the king. Rama is an appearance of Vishnu, they believe. Krishna from the Bhagavad Gita. This person called Krishna. The Buddha. This is where it gets a little bit sketchy, though, because some of the traditional lists will list the Buddha. Others will list one of the brothers, I think, of Krishna, Balarama. I think Balarama is his name. So anyway, so there's some disagreement in this area, but I'll stick with the Buddha. A lot of them agree that the Buddha. So we have the Buddha from another religion completely is considered an avatar of Vishnu. And then finally, Kalki. Or we don't know, the one who's coming at the end of time. He's sometimes known as Kalki. Or I should say, is known as Kalki. related to the word for time in Sanskrit. So it comes at the end of time, and which is not necessarily a good thing. So Vishnu is the pervader, as I said. He's the Lord and the preserver of the universe and the preserver of Dharma. Okay? So he embodies goodness and mercy. What is that, yogurt, Miss Edgebeth? Is that yogurt? Oh, swallow first. I don't, yeah. Yogurt? What kind? What kind of yogurt? Peach? Ooh, strawberry. Tasty. I like strawberry. I like strawberry yogurt. I like yogurt a lot. So he's the keeper of order and human fate. And as I said, he descends to earth in his avatars when the justice of Dharma is threatened. Okay? Yeah, so we've seen some pictures of him. Oh, Garuda. I'm sorry, his vehicle is an eagle. That's right. Garuda, the eagle of heaven. That's right. Garuda. Have that. And here he's on Shesha, the serpent, sleeping. This is after the destruction of the world. Basically, Vishnu decides to take a rest. And he takes a rest on his serpent, Shesha, who's also considered a god and is worshipped as well by Hindus. And he goes to sleep until the universe restarts, and then it's back to business, okay? And this is for you, Mr. Belfield. Enjoy. Hold on a second. I want to... Whoops. Now you decide to go?
Yeah.
இந்த முருகன் ரெண்டி எனக்கு பிள்ளையாக நீ செய்ய வேண்டிய கடமையை செய்தான்.
All right. All righty. Yes, what do I want to do here? Killer of Sinners, 3 words. See, let me get to. There we go. Should we go before that, I think. There we go. Okay, so Prahalada. This is from a movie that was shown on Indian television. With edition of this myth of Narasimha, which is the Hindu, or the Sanskrit word for it. Simha means lion, Nara means a person. So the man lion or Narasimha. I can't remember what the father's name is of Prahalada. If anyone wants to look up Prahalada, give me an extra credit point, find out the name. It escapes me right now. But anyway, what happens is his father at the beginning, the guy at the beginning, talking to the little kid, his father is kind of a demon in a way, and he earns a gift from one of the gods, usually Brahm.
I think I found the answer, but I can't pronounce it.
Well, try, sound it out.
So I cannot.
All right. Let me look at it. Please. Oh, Hiranyakashipu. That's right. All right, sorry, I forgot about that. Hiranyakashipu was his father. And his father is, you know, a demon. He's a bad god in a way. And usually you win a boon or a gift from Brahma. Maybe that's another reason people don't like Brahma. He's always given these gifts, supernatural gifts to demons who then go out and cause mischief. You know, it's always Brahma. He's a troublemaker. Anyways, but he does something, you know, really powerful that impresses the god Brahma, and so Brahma gives him a spiritual gift. He said, "Well, what do you want?" And Hiranyakashipu said, "Well, I want to not be able to be killed. No one can kill me, whether a man or a god." He puts all these conditions on it. A man or a god can't kill me. I can't be killed when it's light out or when it's dark out. I can't be killed by anything that's living or dead. And I can't be killed inside or outside. So it's basically impossible to kill him. Even the gods can't kill him. So, you know, when you have a demon who has free reign, you know, an evil god who likes to do evil things, no one can do nothing to him. Can't touch him. What do you think he's going to do, Miss Carney? You don't know. So people, what do you think he's going to do? Go wash people's feet? Yeah. He's evil. He's a demon. He's doing bad stuff. He's killing people. He's destroying stuff. And he's you know, slapping the other gods around, the good gods. And no one can do anything because Brahma promised him this spiritual gift. There's Brahma there. You can see him in his forehead. It's a movie. Asking the kid to. Now, Hiranyakashipu's little boy, you can see there, is a devotee of Vishnu. He worships Vishnu as the supreme god. And that makes his father angry because Vishnu can't kill me. I'm better than Vishnu. I'm more powerful than all the gods. And I can't be killed. They can't do nothing to me. So you should be worshiping me, Prahalada. You shouldn't be worshiping Vishnu. And so when we come to the show, or we come in on the scene, he's arguing with Prahalada, like, you know, where's your God, Prahalada? Where's your Vishnu? Is he in this column of the building? And Prahalada's like, yeah, he pervades. He's everywhere. He's in everything. Everything is Vishnu. Vishnu is in everything. So he's going to challenge this. So he takes up a big mace and he smashes the column. Comes out of the column. Vishnu Narasimha. Vishnu the man line. Why a man line? Well, remember because he's going to fight and kill. As you can see, he tears open. Yes, he tears open Hiranyakashipu's bowels and kills him. But how is he able to do this? I thought Hiranyakashipu couldn't be killed like under any circumstances that he set out. That's why he comes as a man line. He's a god. He's not fully a god. He's also a man. He's also not fully a man. He's a lion. Okay. You can't really tell this on the show, but he comes at dusk to kill Hiranyakashipu. So it's that kind of, you know, like that time period when it's not really fully light out, but it's not dark yet, right? Like there's a little bit of light, but also some dark. So it's in between. He also, notice where he takes him. He doesn't kill him in the house. He takes him to the outside. He takes him to in between. He takes him to the window. So he's outside and inside at the same time. He's both. He also rips him open with his nails, which are alive because they grow, but they're also dead because you don't feel anything. You cut your nails, you don't get hurt, right? They're like kind of dead. But they're also alive because they still grow. So all of these conditions are fulfilled in Narasimha, and he's able to kill his father. But the problem is that Narasimha goes crazy. So he's so furious with rage that he can't calm down, and that's why the gods even can't calm Vishnu down. That's why Brahma asked Prahalada, he says, please sing to him so that you can calm Vishnu down. Only you can do it. So he does. He sings to him and he does. But he's made a god by Vishnu. But notice he mentions all the avatars. Matsya is the fish avatar. Okay. This is during the time of the Great Flood. There was a worldwide flood. Okay, yes. Didn't we hear this? Haven't we heard this before with like the story of Noah in the Bible? Yes, yes. There are a number of flood stories. So I think something must have happened, some kind of major flood for people to remember it. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's just, anyways, he comes as a kind of a fish to what did he do as a fish? I can't remember what he does as a fish, but he comes as a fish. Then he comes as a turtle later. He balances the world on his back as a turtle, the mountain of the world in the ocean of milk, so that it won't fall, the earth won't fall into the ocean of milk. He comes back. What is his? So all the, what's his other duty? He I forget what he does as the dwarf priest or Parashu with the or Parashu Rama. I forget what he does that. Rama, we already know the story of that. In this case, he has to take care of the demon Hiranyakashipu and kill him. But anyway, so he's mentioning all of his avatars. As Matsya avatar, you destroyed Hayagriva and retrieved the Vedas. Oh, that's right, they stole the Vedas. The demons stole the Vedas. Okay, so he had to get the Vedas back and stuff like that. And yeah, so there you go. Go ahead, sir. Yes.
Why didn't actually who? Why did he have to be so specific with the ways he can't die? Why couldn't he just say I can't die?
Well, first of all, it's a myth, so it's trying to, it's making the story interesting. Because if you just say I can't die, well, where do you go from there? You just can't die. You can't kill him at all. How could you possibly kill him? And the point of the story is that Vishnu arrives, and Vishnu, the supreme god, kills him. So if Brahma just said, okay, there's no way you can die, all right, then how are you going to continue the story? It's kind of like if you're watching a horror movie and they never go into the haunted house, that's the end of the story, close it up. What's stupid? Isn't that the place where all those people got murdered and spooky things happened there? Yeah, let's keep walking. In 5 minutes, the movie's over. No, you got to go into the spooky place where people have been murdered time and time and time again. Because, of course, Mr. Whitehawk, nothing will happen to you. Nothing ever happens. In the movies? Oh, well, that might be true. Certainly not a lot new happens. Sometimes it does, then it makes the world interesting. Yeah, so I take your point, Mr. Belfield, but yeah, and it makes the story kind of interesting, doesn't it? Because it explains why he has to come as a lion, why he has to kill him where he's going to kill him, at the time he's going to kill him. He fulfills all of it. So I guess it makes the story more interesting than just saying, okay, you can't do anything to me. There has to be some weakness somewhere in order for Vishnu to dispatch him. Otherwise, how can Vishnu be the supreme god? It can't be. Hiranyakashipu would be the supreme. Okay, so that's our buddy Vishnu. Now we have Shiva the Destroyer. Shiva the Destroyer. Shiva's name means favorable in Sanskrit. And he's followed by a minority of Hindus. About 26.6% of Hindus identify him as the supreme god. So 27%. Yep. As I said, nobody really identifies Brahma as the supreme god. So he has a minority of followers, and his strongest following of Shiva is in southern India, southern parts of India, also Bengal, which is in the eastern part of India, where, scholars believe that Aryan influence was later. Anyways. Those who follow or are devotees of Shiva are called Shaivites. Shaivites, devotees of the god Shiva. And they identify themselves with these 3 marks of powder or paste going, I guess you could say, laterally across their forehead. So the V-shaped thing would be Vishnu. and this would be Shiva, the cross. He is an ancient god of India. Maybe that's why he's so popular in the south, where there's little Aryan influence. Maybe Vishnu is in the Vedas, isn't he? Right? He's not a popular god in the Vedas, but maybe the Aryans brought him with him, so he's a later emigrant, one might say. So Shiva is an ancient god, but ambiguous. Which, what do I mean by that? I guess it's not sure what he's for, what he does. What kind of god is he? In the Mahabharata epic, Shiva is depicted as the possible creator of both Brahma and Vishnu, and he's even worshipped by the other gods in the Mahabharata. He's called the Lord of the Dance, Nataraja. Raja means king, ruler. Nata means to dance, so Lord of the Dance. And that's how he's depicted famously in this image, this statue of Shiva dancing in a ring of fire. A ring of fire at the destruction of the world, the destruction of all existence. At the end of time, the cosmic dancer. You could also say cosmic energy. Shiva is the uniter of opposites. That's the main point, I think, to remember about Shiva. He reconciles opposition, the dualities of things. In Shiva, all opposite ideas and concepts meet and are resolved in a unity, often violently, often through violence. So Shiva is perceived or portrayed as both a destroyer of life, but also the recreator of life. The recreator. He both brings into existence and makes things go out of existence. He both destroys and creates. He is conceived as terrible, a fearful creature, but he's also mild and gentle towards people. He's ceaseless activity, dancing, but he's also eternal rest. Eternal rest. He's the source of good and evil. He is commonly associated with the ascetic path in Hinduism, the yogis, the swamis and stuff. People who are renouncers, who renounce, who beg, live in the forest or live in the wilderness or live somewhere and they beg for their food and stuff like that. They're called renouncers. And that's kind of like how he's shown. They dress naked like Shiva, so he's represented as naked. And yet he is also, as an ascetic, he's also chaste, which means he doesn't have sex, and yet he's sexually active. He has a lot of sex. So there's two things. He's a virgin, but he's also sexually active. And so Shiva is characterized by fertility. He's associated with fertility. And so Shiva's symbol is the penis. And so when you go to a temple dedicated to Shiva, you're going to see an erect penis all over the place. Yes. The lingam as it's called. Yes. I don't know if I have a picture of it. I think I have a picture of it somewhere on my PowerPoints, but again, going nothing. And usually the lingam is accompanied by the yoni, which is a symbol of the vagina, or the uterus, you could also say. So you have, usually it's a stone, a stone that is, well, sometimes it looks exactly like a dildo. I don't know how else to put it. It looks very, the carver of the stone is being very literal, okay? But sometimes it's just, a stone that is sticking up, surrounded by a stone barrier, stone little wall around it, or stone pot, or well, I don't know how to describe it, or whatever. And so that, that symbolizes, in a way, the sexual act, the penis entering into the uterus or into the vagina, okay? So procreation, fertility. How else is it done? I mean, you've taken biology. I don't know what to tell you. So it's part of human reality. People have been having sex for a long, long time in the human species. So why shouldn't that appear in their religious sensibilities? And it does. It's represented here in Shiva. And that's why his relationship with his consort goddess is so interesting, because Kali likes the sex, so Shiva has to supply it, you know? That's how he calms her down. Oh, okay. So we're done. All right. On that note, I will end and we'll continue with Shiva on Thursday. God bless you all. Have a good day. Yes.
Sure, I believe I already know the answer, but for the quiz, be expected to be the Catholics on their way to St.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Just want
yes.
to make sure I'm taking
Okay.
it. Sure.
Good, good, good. You're welcome, miss. Have a good day, sir. Yes.
It shouldn't affect me here because it's for
Have a good day, sir.
test taking.
Yeah.
And usually we do like our tests online.
Yeah.
But I wanted to let you know, like, just in case that it's being added.
So I should get another one sent
Yeah.
to me? Okay, yeah. Do you get extra time? That's all I really need to know.
No, it's just like I will take any test like in the library, so it's
Have a good
quiet
day,
and
sir.
stuff like that. But
Yeah,
it shouldn't affect me here.
no, because you can take it online wherever is comfortable for you.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know, like, just in case. But
Great.
alrighty.
Thank you, miss. Good day. Okay, where am I here? All right. Okay. Have a good day, everybody in TV land.